We often think of climate change as a modern problem. It is something born of our own time, of factories and cars. But the Earth has always had a changing climate. Its moods shift over centuries, bringing periods of warmth and cold, of wet and dry. For a long time we could only guess at these ancient shifts. The stories were lost to time, buried under layers of soil and history. Now, however, science gives us a remarkable window into this distant past. We can listen to the planet's history, told not in words but in the very elements themselves. Scientists have become detectives of time. They drill deep into the Greenland ice sheet, pulling up cores of ice that have been frozen for thousands of years. Each layer of ice is like a page in a diary. It traps tiny bubbles of ancient air, dust, and volcanic ash. Another clue lies at the bottom of seas and lakes. Scientists take long core samples of sediment from the seabed. Within them, they find the fossilized pollen of ancient plants. A layer rich in olive pollen tells of a warm, Mediterranean climate. A sudden shift to pollen from hardy, dryland grasses signals a dramatic change. It points to a time when the rains stopped falling and the land grew thirsty, forcing life to change or perish. These natural archives tell a powerful tale. They show us that ancient civilizations were not built on a stable and predictable Earth. They rose and fell against a backdrop of dramatic environmental change. Around 3,200 years ago, the world was a very different place. The Late Bronze Age was a time of great empires and flourishing trade. The Hittites controlled Anatolia, the Mycenaeans dominated Greece, and the New Kingdom of Egypt was a beacon of power and culture. These civilizations were interconnected, trading goods like copper, tin, and grain across the Mediterranean. They built magnificent cities, wrote in complex scripts, and created breathtaking art. From our modern perspective, they seemed invincible, their foundations as solid as the stone from which they built their palaces and temples. But then, something went terribly wrong. In the space of just a few decades, this vibrant world fell apart. Great cities were abandoned and burned. Mighty empires vanished from the historical record. Literacy was lost in many regions for centuries. For generations, historians puzzled over its cause. Was it invasion? Was it rebellion? The clues were sparse, and the sheer scale of the destruction was difficult to explain with a single event. Now, the evidence from ice cores and sediment layers points to a powerful culprit: a severe and prolonged period of climate change. Analysis of pollen from the coast of Syria and Cyprus reveals a dramatic shift. Around 1200 BCE, the region was struck by a devastating drought that appears to have lasted for as long as 300 years. The reliable winter rains that had supported agriculture for centuries simply failed. This was not just a bad year or two, it was a fundamental change in the climate system that underpinned their entire way of life. The impact on agriculture would have been catastrophic. The Great Drought did not act alone. It was a powerful catalyst that amplified every other stress point within these Bronze Age societies. Imagine a complex system of interconnected gears. The drought was like a handful of sand thrown into the mechanism. The failure of the harvest was the first domino to fall. Widespread famine meant that people were starving. A hungry population is a desperate population, and desperation often leads to unrest and internal conflict. With their agricultural base destroyed, these empires could no longer support their complex economies. The intricate trade networks that crisscrossed the Mediterranean Sea began to break down. There was simply no surplus grain to trade for essential metals like copper and tin, which were needed to make bronze for tools and weapons. Without bronze, armies could not be equipped, and farmers could not work the land effectively. This internal weakness made them vulnerable to external threats. Historical records from Egypt and Ugarit speak of mysterious groups known as the Sea Peoples. For a long time, these groups were blamed as the sole cause of the collapse, but it is now more likely that they were a symptom of it, not the cause. These were likely other peoples also displaced by famine and drought, who took to the seas in search of new lands and resources. So we see a cascade of failures, a horrifying domino effect. The climate changed, leading to drought. The drought caused famine. The famine led to economic collapse and internal rebellion. And these weakened states were then unable to defend themselves from waves of displaced migrants. It was not one single event, but a convergence of crises, all triggered and made worse by the profound environmental stress. The story of the Bronze Age collapse is more than just a fascinating piece of ancient history. It is a profound and urgent lesson for our own time. It demonstrates in stark detail how even the most sophisticated and powerful civilizations are fundamentally dependent on a stable climate. Today, Our world is more interconnected than ever before. The Bronze Age empires traded grain and copper across the Mediterranean. We trade everything from microchips to coffee across a global network. This interconnectedness brings great prosperity, but it also creates shared vulnerabilities. A drought in a major grain-producing region can now affect food prices on the other side of the planet. The collapse also serves as a stark reminder of the social consequences of environmental stress. Famine and resource scarcity did not lead to peaceful cooperation in the Bronze Age. They led to conflict, migration, and the breakdown of social order. The people of the Bronze Age did not understand what was happening to their world. They could not have known that the climate itself was shifting in a fundamental way. We, however, do not have that excuse. We have the science. We understand the forces we are unleashing. The whispers from the past, carried to us in ice cores and ancient mud, are clear. They tell us that climate is not a backdrop to human history. It is a primary actor. The fate of the Bronze Age is a sobering echo in time, urging us to recognize our own fragility and to act with wisdom to protect the delicate balance that sustains us all.